I would say, imagine harnessing the power of transformative thinking and behavior to unlock your full potential, because that's central to what transformative thinking and behavior is. We believe in this three-step philosophy: listen, learn, and then love, right? And when we meet a stranger, we meet someone comes into the church or comes into our offices or meets me online or connects to me on LinkedIn or anything, and they just need a moment to share, I provide a free consultation where we can just sit down and I focus on creating the safest space between us that I can absolutely create. I have done a bit of this work in government with different types of people, from, senators, mayors, uh, you name it. I believe I've never reached the height that I would say president or vice president of the United States, but I have had consult people who were employed in the White House.
Hi, I'm Obehi the author of the storytelling series for small businesses and content creators. In Obehi Podcast, we talk about the power of your story, your narrative, and why you should own your voice. Whether you are a small business owner, a content entrepreneur, or you simply want to build your influence, storytelling is probably going to be your best instrument to connect with your audience. So join the awakened few who are owning their voices. Now let's get started with today's episode.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. My background is in transformative thinking and behaviors. To put that lightly, it's all about addressing negative thoughts and behaviors and transforming them to more of a positive outview. Because sometimes we get a little stuck in our thinking and our behaviors based on past experiences, childhood links, and things of that nature. And so we find that we struggle in relationships, we struggle professionally, maybe on the job, and then we just find ourselves not getting along with others. And that sort of treatment helps correct that, so that not only do you fit in, but you become fully embraced in society and in your circles and things like that. It's tremendous. I've been studying that, and that's been a great deal of my practice for about 45 years.
Thank you so much for that, Don Whitson. Now, help us understand you a little bit better. So, what is your background in the sense of, tell me a bit about where you grew up. We are particularly interested about that. To say, Obehi Podcast is a central around storytelling. So, we like to know where you are coming from in the sense of where you grew up. What do you remember of your childhood? That helps us, of course, to sort of know also ourselves within the framework of where we are talking about. Please help us understand your the earliest you can remember of yourself.
Sure. So I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. It's in the Midwest or central part of the United States. And I am the oldest of nine, born from a mother who was the youngest of nine. Um, and I had a wonderful childhood, and my mother and father were both nurturers and caring for each other and loving each other. My father was a doctor, and all of my siblings, including myself, we're all doctors. Uh, I refer to my siblings in numbers. So number five, the middle child, he's the only psychiatrist. I'm the only psychologist. So we rank in terms of psychology the top two. And then my father is a speech pathologist. And it just made for a wonderful upbringing. We're all musicians. My father was a musician. We all studied martial arts, and we're all really good at it. I believe we're all black belts, and it just was tremendous. Even my mom studied as well, and so it was a great way to unite the family. It was a great way for us to center our, I would say, anxiety, our thoughts, and our behaviors more disciplinedly, because martial arts is about discipline. And it's just awesome that we can take anybody down if we have to. But it's a great form of exercise, and we love it. And it really made for a very close knit and loving family.
That's very great. Have you ever have to fight somebody on the street because you have this kind of capability?
Oh yeah, all the time. Being born in the city, we see challenges all the time. And one of the disciplines that my father taught us um, was show and rue, and that's superior hands and feet. And so uh, that form of martial arts isn't about showcasing skill, it's about stopping it immediately. So within the first 2 to 3 blows, your opponent is on the ground and it's going to have to be carried out. And we just put into it really quick. But I don't go out looking for trouble, but it was fantastic because as we grew up, I began to have a reputation for being able to take care of and secure my siblings. And so whenever someone knew that one of my siblings, we were connected, obviously, they wouldn't bother them. They wouldn't mess with them. It's like, oh, because then we got to dance we got to dance with Doc, and I don't want to do that. But yeah.
In my place, okay, I'm from south of Nigeria. My people, the group of people that I'm part of, is called Esan. So among the Esan people, there is a saying
Yeah.
that I dank bomono negedemel obare sihainan. So that would mean that a child who behind him are giants, in the sense of maybe there are boys behind him, you don't beat this child on the way. You can, the worst you can do, you say be careful, be careful, but you dare not beat that kind of a child, because you know that if you beat the child, then you are going to be ready for the entire army that is coming after.
That is
Thank you
amazing.
for
That's
that. So
awesome.
I can get that feeling, because so in my family, we are nine in total, but it is nine. Two of them are female, so every other one of us, seven of us, we are male. So I can get a feeling. I understand what that means. All right. Now, talking of transformative thinking, how did you get into that? Help us understand it.
So um, I'll jump back to how it all started. In the summer of 1977, I was looking for a volunteer opportunity. I wanted to give back to my community, and I just wanted to involve myself into some of the various programs, because of my academically, my skill set, I was really strong in mathematics and sciences, um, and things of that nature. And so I wanted to contribute that. So I was looking for programs that they were looking for tutors, they were looking for teachers, they were just looking for maybe even guidance counselors. And so I stumbled across a phone number, it was an 800 number, and I contacted them. And as I was having a phone call with the director of a program, who coincidentally became my professor when I studied in Oxford, he's a very well known psychologist. And I responded, but make a long story short, it was in the, I guess you want to say the southeast portion of United States, literally across the pond from England. And I went. He discovered that I had a particular skill set. He loved how I embraced people and pretty much my active listening skills and my ability to connect emotionally. And those things were extremely appealing to him and kind of set the stage for the kind of work that I actually do now. And so at the end of the program, and I actually stayed about 2 months after the program was over because we were working with middle school and high school age students. So we were working with students from the grade point of 7th to the 12th grade, and we were helping them with their performance academically. And so I stayed because I wanted to see how well they reacclimated into the school program and how they went into the classes and did the work and applied what we taught them. And if they were a little nervous or a little unsure, or a little uncomfortable, I was still there to help support them and guide them. And so that's sort of how it began. And the director had a conversation with me before I left, and he said that he had recognized a particular skill set, and he recognized the caring attributes that I had for those children. And he suggested that if I was interested, he would teach me everything I needed to know to be able to help people in a magnificent way. And so I took him up on the challenge. And then when I returned home, I had a conversation with my pastor about my experience. And he thought it was so wonderful that he continued my work with children by making me a youth pastor. And so now I'm spiritually developing and guiding the young people that were members of our church. And I did that for several years. And then I attended a symposium on philosophy and and then another in psychology, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I was hooked. And so that following semester, I enrolled, began my studies in psychology. And the following year, I added theology to it. And so I currently now hold 2 doctorate degrees, one in psychology and one in theology. And I apply those things holistically to help people with their challenges, whether it's, personal or interpersonal. And I love the work that I do.
That's fantastic. So you are really deeply rooted in this. Of course, we understand from your explanation that you are coming from a family that have a lot of a solid background in education. So now we can
Yes.
understand how much that is valued in your trajectory. Um, I'm sort of wondering, how would you describe a transformational thought? How would you explain that to an average person?
So I would maybe tell a story or an antidote. Um, I've actually written one that I would love to find and share with you. Um, but I would start off by just initially sharing that I would say imagine harnessing the power of transformative thinking and behavior to unlock your full potential, because that's central to what transformative thinking and behavior is. It's really unlocking your full potential. So, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? What is it that you want to do? What is it that you're trying to overcome? And you've really been struggling with it, but you want to be the master of your destiny. And then I share with them that the process involves a profound shift from limiting beliefs and negative habits to more empowering thoughts and actions that drive personal growth and success. And boy, they come knocking, and it's been tremendous. And I've just been watching high school age students all the way up to senior citizens really excel in transforming their lives. I have uh, had many counseling sessions with husbands where wives had recommended that they had sought some counseling. And once they described the issues and the challenges that they faced and the problems between them and their spouses, usually that transformative thinking and behavior model that I use is implemented, and the wives call me. I was literally in a mall this summer, and I was walking with my mother, and we were just doing some shopping. So while we were looking for gifts for a few birthdays that were coming up, and this lady walks past me, and she says, "Excuse me, are you Dr. Don?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." She says, "Oh my God, I am so and so, so and so. Please let me tell you how you have transformed my marriage. Do you have a minute to talk to me?" And my mother was like, "Of course he does." And she began to just tell the story. And as she was telling it, tears were running down her face. And she just reached out and grabbed me and gave me such a bear hug, and just like, "Thank you for the work that you did with my husband, because it saved our marriage, and it also transformed me because he shared some of the lessons and some of the skills and the different things that you gave them. He gave them to me." And so now we pass these on to our children, and it's just been amazing. We have been watching our children academically soar and overcome some of the obstacles that they were facing. And she said, "Because of you, you have given our entire family a legacy that we'll never forget, and we'll never know how to repay you." And then she hugged me again, and she hugged my mom, kissed her on the cheek, and said, "Thank you for raising such an incredible man." And she went her way. Uh, Needless to say, my mother and I were standing there crying too.
You see, this is the most rewarding part of the job that anyone can do, in
Yes,
that you can see the transformation in the life of the people. Because at the end of the day, irrespective of the job that you do, you are dealing with human beings. You are not dealing with just statistics or numbers.
right.
And when you can see the result in the people, you are a human being. You must feel it. I can also hear that the woman was crying, sharing her experience with
Yeah,
you. Have you learned the through the transformation that you have make your family go through? Then that affects you too, in that
yes,
you and your mom also cried. That is powerful.
yes,
That is powerful. Here we,
indeed.
we spend a lot of time talking about storytelling, how to use different elements to different dynamics in storytelling, all for the purpose of better engagement with our audience.
Yes,
Yes, we spend a lot of time talking about storytelling within the area of business and things like that, how to be how to be intentional with our story, how to make sure that we are also vulnerable. Why not? We are human beings.
yes,
There is a book I just finished to write. This book is really very important for me. I just published it a couple of days ago, and I'm going to be presenting it on the 15th of this month. Then I'm already thinking how emotional I'm going to be, because it's sort of a personal story.
yeah,
It's a biography I wrote about my eldest brother, who sort of have a fatherly role to me and to my entire family. So having to talk about him mean also talk about myself, talk about my entire family in a way that I've never talked about before in any of my writing. I've written a couple of books, but I've never really go that deep about my family. So that made me a little bit emotional when I'm going to be sharing that book with people. Then I was also reflecting on that yesterday. I went to pick my son. I was just somewhere while he was yet to come out. I was thinking, this is really what it should be. In that, when you talk to people, you should really have that moment where you like go naked. No, I think it
yeah.
is important. It is important.
It truly is. I find that it's the power of empathy, because being empathetic, is merely making an emotional connection to the people that you're talking to, whether it's through a podcast, whether it's through a book, whether it's face to face and you're able to caress them, being able to emotionally connect and share their emotion at that moment and really pay attention. I honestly find that 80% of my work involves my ability to first connect, emotionally connect, and secondly, to listen. Uh, a lot of the clergy and spiritual leaders, of which I am a bishop and an apostle. Um, we believe in this three-step philosophy: listen, learn, and then love, right? And when we meet a stranger, someone comes into the church or comes into our offices or meets me online or connects to me on LinkedIn or anything, and they just need a moment to share, I provide a free consultation where we can just sit down and I focus on creating the safest space between us that I can absolutely create, uh, and allow them to pour their hearts out. Because what's said to me is said in complete confidence. No one will hear or know what you said to me. So you can honestly keep it real with me. You don't have to speak in code. You don't have to be general. You can be tremendously specific with me. And a lot of times we're able to address and correct something right away, which leads to future sessions, and we zero in and we focus. I share the things that I learn with them along the way. But initially, we establish what I call a contract. And that contract is simply us agreeing to why the person's there, and then my developing a treatment plan that addresses their concern and their focus, and we share that. And so the goal is to make sure that we start off on the right foot, that I do understand what their concerns are and what they're trying to accomplish, and that they feel comfortable, like, okay, yeah, Dr. Don, he gets it and he totally understands. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do this. Let's go. And then we go, and then we track along the way. And so I ask the my clients to, give me feedback on how they feel things are progressing, and then we keep going, because if we're a little bit off, it gives me an opportunity to course correct. And but all of my sessions, all of my, I'll say, client relationships begin with an assessment. So they complete an assessment, and then I review the content and make my notes and collect my findings and things. And then we do an intake session. During that intake session, I would share with them what I found, and I would begin to lay out what these things are and give them some examples of what that is and ask them about their experiences with it. And they're like, wow, that is really uncanny. Yeah, absolutely. And then they would just go down the list, and that just helps solidify my understanding and my capability and expertise in terms of being able to help them. And we go to work.
You go to work. Yeah, the
Yeah.
work continues.
Yes.
All right. Transformational thinking and behavior. Now, let's look at the African diaspora community, for example, because that is our
Okay.
focus demography here. How will people in this demography, this kind of people, leverage this thing that you do, the ability uh, to leverage transformational thinking in their work? It could be maybe to build a community. It could be maybe within their businesses. It could be maybe to better connect with other members of the African diaspora community.
Mhm.
I'm trying to say what would be the importance of this to them.
Well, um, if they're trying, if we speak in terms of a business, my initial question would be, why, why do you want to do this? What are you trying to accomplish? And if it's, more sales, I'd like to be more hospitable. I'd like to be able to develop a program where when I'm interviewing people, I can find the right fit for my store or my organization and what I'm trying to do. And then we can start that way, and then we would maybe focus on identifying thought patterns and behaviors that might be hindering the organization's ability to find people, because a lot of times it's merely philosophy, especially if there's a great age difference, and I would say 20 years or plus. We're obviously going to be operating from a different thought framework. And so the goal would be to integrate that, leverage it, and align it with maybe the goals, the objectives, the missions, and the values of the store, the owner, the organization. And that's what we would do. In a broader sense, because I have done a bit of this work um, in government, with different types of people, from, senators, mayors, uh, you name it. I believe I've never reached the height of that. I would say president or vice president of the United States, but I have had consult people who were employed in the White House. And so it's, again, thought patterns and behaviors. A lot of times when we approach a problem or an issue or something, or we're trying to build something, we're building it from the perspective of what we know, what we like, and what we desire. But ideally, you want to identify who your audience is, who's going to be affected by this, who are you trying to align yourself with, what are their patterns, what are their behaviors, what are their beliefs, what are their coping strategies, what are those things? Because if you can identify those things and then connect them to your visions, your values, your products, your services, the objective of government and how they're trying to manage and run a community or even an entire country, then it becomes a story of hearts and minds. The goal is to capture hearts and minds. And in order to do that, you got to get out, you got to meet people, you got to talk to them, you got to find out who they are, what they are, and you got to bring in experts that know how to develop a strategy for that, and how to connect with people, and how to measure that information to know what you have and then make impact. One of the biggest and challenging things that I faced in that particular category here in the States was, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but we had an incident, oh my gosh, might have been close to 20 years ago, with Mike Ferguson, who was uh, murdered by a police officer. And he was a young Black man, I believe around the ages of 18 or 19 years old. And the police officer was white. It turned out that this person had anger issues and bouts with anxiety. So imagine that. And then you come face to face with someone who challenges your authority. you know, Now your feelings are hurt, you feel disrespected, then you forget about your job, and now you're thinking about yourself, and then you get into a defense mechanism. And now we got a young Black man laying down in the street in a puddle of his own blood and dead, all because you lost focus. You made it about yourself instead of what was actually going on. And it could have been simply resolved, but it was just totally mishandled. And so I worked alongside other pastors and priests and things from the community. And we formed an organization called Ferguson Forward, where we worked towards resolving the conflict that existed between the police department and the citizens that were marginalized and happened to be Black. And we brought the entire community together. It was a long fight. We wound up being spokesmen for our community. That pastor and I, we both moved into the community and became a physical, a literal part of the community so that we were always present 24 hours of the day. And we're both still parts of that community now, all these years later. And it's been, you would not believe the transformation. It today, I believe this community is better than it was before we all experienced that incident.
There
And
you
I
go
love
again.
living here.
There you go again. The transformation. I think that
Yeah,
is actually the centerpiece of it.
yes.
All right. Now, um, how do you develop transformational thinking? Help me understand a kind of a strategy that someone will need to undergo to develop this ability to think uh, with this capability.
Okay, so let's put it in a context of a husband and a wife, which I see this often, and transformational thinking and behavior is central to my practice of relationship and life counseling. Um, let's say the husband feels that the wife's always undermining him and not respecting him. And let's say the wife is mindset is he's not handling his responsibilities great. And I think he's a great man and I love him and everything, but he just, I don't know what's wrong with him. Maybe he's depressed or something like that. Those two different perspectives clearly identify the need for transformational thinking because remember, the patterns. My job is to listen, my job is to identify pattern. And then when I see the pattern, I see the problem and I also see the solution and I merely introduce it. And when it's accepted, we execute and we begin to do that. And I help the husband see that where it looked like she was undermining your authority and not respecting you, she was clearly verbalizing what she thought and how she felt, whereas she's speaking emotionally and about her feelings, and you're speaking literal. So you're talking about the same thing, but you're talking past each other. And the goal is to talk to each other. And so it's just like mathematics. When you have different, excuse me, when you have different measurements, like feet and inches, the way to solve that to get to what X is you have to transform one of those. You either have to transform the inches into feet or the feet into inches so they align, and then you can come out with what X is. And you can connect, you can communicate X in two different ways, and it's based on who you're talking to. So if this person that you're talking to or the problem, a word problem you may be solving, that way you perform that or provide that answer is based on the narrative. Are they asking for inches or are they asking for feet? And that's the way that you answer it, but you always wind up with two options. And so in that instance, I also talked to the wife and what he's doing because of her belief is his behavior is not lining up with what she believes. And there's a great lesson there because what you believe isn't always the truth. And sometimes it's outdated, and your spouse's beliefs may not align to that. And it's symptomatic of one problem. And the problem is this: the couple didn't build their marriage. They just got into a marriage and they continue to conduct themselves in a manner in which they always have, which is single. And they came with all their philosophies in terms, instead of coming together and saying, okay, I think this, I think this, I believe this. What is our marriage going to be about? I always dreamed that I would be married to a man that X. And he would say, well, I always dreamed of my wife would be more like X. And so now you align that and you figure that out. And then there is this willingness to transform, to actually become that for your husband and for your wife. And we traveled down that path. So I help lots of people. And if we're talking based on the family or based on the marriage, build their marriage, because a lot of times I see organizations and even churches who run programs and they say rebuild your marriage. Well, how do you rebuild something that you never built in the first place? You have no building blocks, you have nothing to start with. Your family, your marriage has no philosophy, it just has discord, right? And so we remove all of those things and we align those thinking patterns and we embrace one another. You don't lose your voice. You don't lose what you enjoy and what you appreciate, but you become assertive in the sense of you're an I person, never you did this. We don't blame. Instead, we say, wow, a sort of a person might say, I don't handle conflict well. And so as we're going through this, I might be getting angry and then I'm saying some things I really didn't mean. And, Dr. Don shared the importance of never saying things because you're angry. And if you reach a point when you're angry, that's the time the discussion should stop so that you're never, ever sorry for saying something you didn't mean because it leaves a mark. The person you did that to is going to be scarred for life. So now that's in the back of their head. And I got to work with them to help them release and let go of that. And if they're unwilling to let go of that, they're going to wind up resenting you and the marriage is going to end anyway, right? So, there is this sense of preventive maintenance while we are repairing, right? And I call it scaffolding. So we put up the rods and the boards and things like that. And we begin by tuck pointing and different things that we need to do to smooth out some of those edges and repair some of the damages of the marriage and a relationship. And we continue to build and we change, we work on addressing philosophies and ways of thinking, those patterns, those negative beliefs about one another. And we recover. The goal in that would be to rediscover the joy of why you got married in the first place, when you started dating. When she said no to you 20 times and you went back on the 21st time, she said, okay, I'll go out with you. And that first date transformed to years later, you're married, you got a family with kids, and your life is the best it's ever been. And my goal is to help you maintain that.
Okay, so how might one leverage transformational thinking apart from the area that you have already mentioned, which in this case is family? I see that you also mentioned it in the society, looking at maybe in politics. Are there other areas that might require transformational thinking so that more people should learn it for this reason?
Okay. Okay, so when you ask that question, my thoughts immediately go back to Ferguson, and the work that we did with law enforcement, what we did with the officials of the state, um, because as there was a great drive and a request for the police officers to undergo a specific type of training. What was missing that of the training was two things. Well, the community has to be trained too, right? And because we had a challenge with getting everybody of the community in there, we trained the community that we could get into meetings every week. But we taught many of the officers how empathy. So we taught them how to emotionally connect to the community. The community made some, also the I would say the government made some of the community made some changes too that they wanted every member of the law enforcement to be citizens of the community and not part of the communities simply because it's integration. You know, I work here, but I don't live here, right? And that without that, there could be a lot of challenges with, again, empathy. And so when we talk about transformative thinking, you know, we're really talking about now the other end of that aspect because it's thinking and behavior. So now the focus went towards behavior and how we could emotionally connect. And so we took the strategy of teaching empathy and creating uh, that safe space, if you will. And so now, you know, law enforcement, you know, they're really keen and good at creating safe spaces, even when they've got to come out and correct or maybe even arrest someone. So now the dynamic is completely different. Um, and a lot of the officers are on a first name basis with many of the members in the community. I mean, I would go and have coffee at a Starbucks or have a sandwich at a restaurant or something like that, and the officer would come in. I'll recognize him and say, "Oh, hey, Bill, how you doing?" And he would turn around, "Oh my God, Dr. Don, how you doing?" "I'm doing great." We caress, we hug one another, we update each other, we talk. You know, the community seeing things like that, especially between a community leader and activist with law enforcement, where there was such a disconnect, they see this, they come into that and become part of it as well, because now that changes their thinking and their philosophy, and they're going like, oh, right? And it gives us an opportunity to do what I call a flash training right on the spot. They're observing the emotional connection between a member of the community and a member of law enforcement, which there used to be this great divide, and now that gap's actually been closed. I hope
That's
that answers
powerful.
your question. Thanks.
It
Thank
does.
you.
It does. Thank you so much for that. All
Mhm.
right. Now, how can people connect with you? Those who see what you have discussed today about transformative thinking, and they want to maybe learn more. Of course, the reason we are also here is to create a connection. They want to work with you, and because you have also offer that you have out there. So share with them. How can they reach out to you? Where can they see you?
Okay, so if you can find me on social media platforms. On Instagram, on IG, it's at Tell Doctor. It's also it's Dr. Don O. Wilson on LinkedIn. On Twitter, it's Tell Doctor. On Facebook, it's Tell Doctor. My website is telldoctor.com. Um, And you can also reach me by email at dr.don@telldoctor.com. And I also have a phone number. It's area code 314-699-4464.
So yeah, that should be enough for those who want to reach out to you,
Yeah.
so they can connect with you. Okay, so what would be your final thoughts today, considering what we have discussed about this conversation? Maybe there is something you wanted to say I did not ask you. So conclude it in your own way. Please go ahead.
If you or someone that you know can benefit from my counseling services, or if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I would be delighted to discuss with you how I can assist you on your path to personal growth and for developing a more meaningful relationship, whether that's between your marriage, someone you're dating, maybe it's familial, so it's about your family, or it could be professional, your coworkers and colleagues. I am here to help. My name is Dr. Wilson, Dr. Don Wilson. My friends call me Doc. My clients simply know me as Dr. Don.
Thank you so much for that. It has been a pleasure talking with you here. It really has been an honor. Thank you so much, Dr. Whitson.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you and to be here on the show. I'm just looking forward to our continued connection and the things that we can do together to help spread the word and help people. I think your podcast is tremendous. I love you for creating it. I love the fact that you invited me to become a part of the stories that you tell and how you reach the community and impact them in such a very tremendous and special way. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm honored. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you in the next episode.